Welcome everyone to another episode of Girls Rising Virtual Connect, where we have some incredibly special guests today. We've got the one and only singer-songwriter Dar Williams, along with the other amazingly talented singer-songwriter, Miss Jill Sobule. And we've got one of our very favorites, Lindsay Whiteman, a Long Island native singer-songwriter, who has joined us on several occasions, but she's been with us at the Girls Rising Music Festival. She's done shows with us in New York City. Lindsay is a student at the Berklee School of Music. As we like to say, she knows all the notes. Oh. And Lindsay's here to chat with us, and we're all just here to talk about what it's like to be a musician, a singer-songwriter, who is now put on hold pretty much during this time of pandemic across the United States.
And locked up.
Yeah, how it's affecting us mentally, emotionally, maybe some of the things we're doing to get through it. We can all talk about how creative we're probably all being. We're probably writing tons of songs, right, ladies?
Totally.
I mean, I'm just right. Where, get me my guitar. So, you know what? Let's start with Lindsay, because Lindsay, we got to chat for a couple seconds before, and then you will be inundated by us, Lindsay. So let's make this all about you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Lindsay is a super talented singer-songwriter, and Dar, you would have had the opportunity to see her because you were supposed to be at our festival this year that we've had to delay, and but Lindsay, you would have met there. But Lindsay was just telling us that she was, well, where were you, Lindsay, when you got called home from school?
I was in Valencia, Spain.
Yeah. It's tough for so many reasons, isn't it?
That's just tough on every level.
Right. Yeah, it's tough on every level.
Yeah.
So you were abroad. This semester you were abroad? So
yeah.
What you were doing? What were you doing in Valencia, Spain?
Oh, it's the only place my school allows to go abroad to. So I was like, okay, let's go. But I was trying to learn a little Spanish, travel as much as I could, and just, write songs and take classes pretty much.
And when you got called back, explain to us like what that was like, like how did you get home? How traumatic was that of an experience? Like what does that look like in Spain?
It was literally insanity because I was actually sick. I had a stomach flu and it was during midterms week. So I wasn't going to my actual midterms, I thought that was the problem. But then one night at like 4 a.m., my friend comes banging on my door and she was like, oh my God, we have to go right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? She was like, they're closing the US borders.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, that turns out they weren't actually closing the US borders to American citizens, which was good. But it was like within those couple of days, like I had to lose my fever and hop on a plane and get home.
Yeah.
So that was really terrifying. I almost couldn't bring my guitar back too.
Yeah, it was pandemonium. And at that moment in time, the news that we were getting here was all over the place too. So I can only imagine how chaotic that was for you abroad and how disruptive, not only is it disrupting your school, but it's your school semester abroad.
Yeah.
To be abroad during that time.
Right. There's another song, Dar.
How does she do it?
Oh.
She does it again, just like that.
That is just not how I feel at all. This sort of, can I just tell you guys, I'm sorry, I just have to say, somebody said to me, I bet you're just writing one masterpiece after another. And I was like, if I were, I would stop right now. Like just the idea that everyone's just looking at you going like, so what you writing? It just makes me freeze.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, Dar, because you have a history of writing not on demand, of writing in the moment to the muse and sort of really making a career on that and going without songs for a while and waiting patiently, which is not, I think it's like, I don't even know how you're patient about it without crumbling into nerves and thinking you'll never write again.
Oh,
But which happens perhaps.
That's another episode.
Right. But so I guess this is such a crazy time of high emotion and new feelings and newness, and everything is changing in such a way that you would think that maybe that is fertile ground for introspection, for creativity, or just basically, what are your sort of thoughts on that? I know now you've expressed that maybe you're not writing.
I'm working on some stuff because I sit down, when I can, and I try to do it every day, but I don't do anything every day. So, that's the sort of I do everything every day is kind of an anal kind of, but I do sit and see what happens. It's like going out in a boat fishing and seeing what happens. And if I catch something, great. If I don't, it's kind of a bummer, but I don't freak out, because then you got to show up the next day and not be all upset. So, I think creativity, like the times that I wasn't writing songs, I was still kind of creating a way to be nice to the person at the rental counter at the rental car place who was like not finding my file, like creativity just means finding solutions and finding things, whether it's the crossword puzzle or writing a song or coming up with ideas for things. Like I was really bummed out because we have all these little plastic herbs that people like herbs in little plastic. They're always rotten by the time they get there, and they're grown in Mexico, but they grow like weeds where we live, like thyme and basil and stuff. So so we were having one of those like pussy hat postcard writing sessions. I was like, we should do an herb garden. And it was like, totally, a community herb garden. And somebody said, like, we should ask the guy at the Episcopal church if we can do it there. And he said yes, and it's right next to the supermarket, so that's great. And we did it. I mean, it wasn't as people didn't get as passionately involved as I might have hoped. But like, we got it rototilled, we got it done. We do it every year. Now we do it with the Girl Scouts. Like, that's creativity. So it's like this time has shown sort of there's all these ways that we go about solving the problems of our lives and dealing with our brains, adapting to new situations, and that's creativity too. So yeah, I'm sitting down, and truth be told, I am working on a bunch of songs, and truth be told, I'm kind of excited about it. But like that whole emphasis, some people are just trying to be creative about survival, is I don't really like to go there too much with like, oh yeah, this has just been a really beautiful, creative time. Spiritual too, like, ugh. People work at Chili's and have been told they're not going to work for the next 2 years. Like, and they have no safety net. And they're not in the right country for that predicament. Right. And so, so yes, I feel creative right now, but that's a gigantic luxury.
Yeah, well, I also feel though that you have written, you're not afraid to go political, and this also goes to Jill, who is certainly not afraid to mince words in song. So maybe Jill, are you finding that your political side is sort of revved up? And I mean, we're in such a crazy moment in history. What's your sort of?
Well, the first few weeks, I tried to have the attitude of, you know what, Billy Joel or Fran Lebowitz, they haven't written anything in 25 years and they feel fine about it. I was like, yeah. I mean, really, also because I was completely inundated by news and by blogs, and there was I wasn't taking any time for creativity. And I think that's completely fine and okay. And it's just been in the last week that I've tried. I'll tell you what I did is the people I'm staying with, I said to them, 4 hours a day, take my devices away. So I didn't have anything else to do. I had my guitar, I had a pencil. I could actually go and watch the TV though. Great movies, Criterion Channel. But I ended up actually, for me, writing, I've been away from it. And so it's like getting back to running again. I mean, it is, I have to force myself, like getting myself out the door, putting on the shoes, going and doing it, and then being miserable for 2 or 3 days that nothing is coming out. And then inevitably something does. And I think what helps is that all the time that I spent going on, being outraged, going on my favorite political blogs and Twitter and the news, and I actually watch those pressers. I'm actually using that in kind of satirical songwriting, and not that I want that to be everything that I get out of this, but it's a beginning. So it's just been in the last week that I've written a couple songs, and I mean they're little ditties, you know, and topical songs. So that for me is what's happening. Plus, I've got the incentive that I've been really active on doing Facebook lives and Instagram lives, and I've been playing. Like, I'll just say, I'll put on my Instagram, or I'll make some sort of bad Photoshop poster. In 3 hours, I'm going to go and I'm going to do a few songs and people, and it's been kind of great that people, for the first time, especially if we do them on Zoom or even Facebook Live, Zoom, it's the first time people have seen me live ever, because I never go to a lot of places. I haven't been to Oklahoma. I don't in the Midwest. There's a lot of places in the South I really don't tour. So on one hand, it's been kind of great, and I've been really, really enjoying it. And I lost all my gigs. The musical that I was supposed to be last Friday, that was supposed to open, and I was supposed to be in it for a month, you know, was canceled or postponed, and all my gigs for, you know, probably the summer too. So people are actually tipping me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I don't know, there's something that I think that we're going to hold on to this forever. This, you know, nothing's going to beat a live show, but there's something so freaking great about rolling out of my couch, turning it on, not having the expenses of traveling in the van, finding a hotel, and playing, and just turning it on.
Yeah.
Right.
So these are the positives. I think I answered a lot more than you needed.
Yeah.
But it's good. I like that. That's a nice smear of all the positives, Jill. I love that. And I have been, you know, not doing, like, every time I hear one of these like crazy pressers, I go out and I just plant more lettuce. Like, that's how I've been dealing. I take these really long walks. So, you know, like,
Lord.
it's like an introvert's dream come true, this kind of thing. And I'm half, you know, in terms of, I think that a lot of musicians are half. Like, a lot of us talk about the Myers-Briggs test, you know, the thing that tests whether you're an introvert or extrovert, how you reason about things. Apparently I have the profile of Mr. Rogers. Yay. And like, one of my really good friends who I'd really have a hard time with has the same profile as Hitler. But anyway, but there's this thing where it's like I'm always halfway introvert or extrovert. And I don't know if any of you have taken any of these personality tests, but it's like I'm really good at being alone, and I'm really good at not being alone.
Right.
But this alone time, where it's just me, like, doing my stuff, doing my kids, cooking for them, and, you know, and I hear somebody, like, footsteps near the doorstep. I'm like, no one's coming to the door. Like, no one's gonna knock. No one's gonna try to come into my house. There's something about sort of the maximum solitude that I can work with going forward in my life. So, you know, I wouldn't say that I'm writing songs, but I'm sort of in that swirly creative place where I just don't feel like people are invading my space. Not to be so rude about it, but, you know, like, it's my space. Right. And I can play with that. And I think that's been a huge relief to me. So, and I love that the taking device away, Jill. Like, I actually today wouldn't let myself read the news. First time. And today got a little bit more of my own self into the world than I expected to. So I actually think it's like an addiction. Like, you think you're doing something good by keeping up with the news. And I think there is some advantage to that. I mean, you learn all this stuff, you can talk about it, but you think that it's, you have to keep up with the news. And then when you don't and you let the rest of your life take up that space, turns out that's okay. No one's mad at you.
Well, I think we have definitely a problem with how we take in news because it's 24/7 cycles and it's every minute is breaking. So I just feel like, to your point, it's allow yourself 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour of news, and then that's enough.
Right.
You know, yeah, it's
increment.
Right, because it's designed to keep you. It's designed to reel you in, and all of that isn't necessary.
Yeah, I know. I think though the political science major in me is that there's so much. There's 100 outrages, craziness a day, right. and watching that it is. I have to have people take it away. It is such like a drug right now. And you do feel like, I feel like it's important for me to know. I read, in the morning, I read the New York Times and the Washington Post. And then I think, well, that is friggin' great, but is it much better from whatever my little teeny piece in the world is? I mean, it's good because of political writing, but does that really make a difference? You know, I'm not in the ER or doing it, you know, it's not like that's doing something positive for the world. It's great to have that knowledge, but us being creative and we're doing enough as it is also by just being socially distant. You know, we're doing our job too.
Artists are creative and compassionate. I think that all of us here needed because we have hearts as well as minds, you know, to put things together, especially this group of women.
I think if any of you are interested, a few years ago, an acquaintance who works with nurses, and he runs a magazine called, gotta try to remember, what do you call the outfits they wear?
Personal protection, the PPE?
Middies?
No, just nurses in general. It's called
mini skirts.
Scrubs.
Yes. So, and I was good. I wanted to write nurses' stories. This was like years ago, and I never did it. And so I got back a hold of him, and I've had interviews with a couple nurses, and I haven't written, that are in the front line. This one woman thinking, you know, wanting to help them write their own story. So if any of you are interested in doing that with me, that would be great. I just started doing it yesterday. I talked to a nurse who just got back from her you know, whatever, 8 hours or whatever it was. And she said that every day her neighbor, she calls her neighbor 15 minutes before she gets home, and her neighbor on the driveway has a margarita ready for her.
Nice. That's awesome.
Well, you know, Mary Gaucher did something similar to that with the veterans. She, remember?
Oh, that's so good.
I mean, for her, I don't know if you're talking about writing prose or just stories or just capturing, but she did it in song where she wrote with the veterans to capture their particular story was, and it's a masterpiece.
So anyway, that's one way to I find also you get creative when you have deadlines and other people that you have to like why should I write a song for my next record? Who cares? Yeah. You know, if you have someone that you're writing with, or you have something that like, yeah, I should get this done, it's a deadline.
To be accountable. Lindsay, what about you? What are you doing? What are you finding that you and your peers are doing or looking for or feeling during this time?
Yeah, one of the first days I got back, I biked to all of my friends' houses and I stood on their lawns with a megaphone and I just like shouted to them, and so that was fun. But yeah, there's some frustration with like songwriting. Like right in the beginning of the quarantine, I felt kind of almost like paralyzed, and like I was like, oh my god, I have to write like an inspiring song, I have to do it. And sometimes I forget that I can't do like what I think I should do, I have to do what I want to do. And so then I kind of like leaned more into comedy and like whatever I actually was feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, That's pretty much what I've been doing.
Do you also feel like maybe it's a time, and this isn't just the slacker excuse, although I always like that, then maybe it's time to incubate. It's time to be quiet, to take in. Maybe that's this time.
Maybe it is. And I think, Lindsay, you said something in particular where, you know, there's what you think you should do and your brain is like spinning out and you should be being so incredibly productive.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe this is a time for for all of us to recharge.
I think it's kind of the opposite.
Ourselves, you know, kind of just even out, you know, and a rebirth, if you kind of will.
And sometimes what happens with that, Kathy, is that if you give yourself the pause button, I mean, this is something I know and I think we all know this to some extent, we're freelancers. So it's like, if you're on the road, you know what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to find coffee. Like, that's your job. Find good coffee, those nerves, you know, like rent a car, go to a hotel and perform, you know. But when we're at home, it's like, okay, I have this whole day and there's all of these different, you know, this like palette, this painter's palette of all these different colors that I can, you know, go to with my paintbrush. Is it going to be a pastel day? Is it going to be a primary color day? Is it going to be a political day? Or is it going to be a, you know, songwriting day? And, or, you know, giant grocery shopping day, which now in the pandemic is like, that's the whole day. Like it takes
a big day out at the grocery shop.
You get home and you look at everything and you wonder if it's covered with the disease. But, oh, I have something to say about men, by the way. But as a freelancer, I feel like I have something that I can offer to people right now. I mean, I've just been talking a lot with friends. Maybe that's really what I've been doing for the last month. I was just saying, do what you do in a day. It's going to feel like a little bit, and then it's going to add up, you know, because like Nini, you're right. Like I don't write songs quickly, but I always have one on the burners. Like it's always being sort of informed by my life. I always have something going on and I kind of push and pull and then I see and then, nah, not today, maybe tomorrow. And so but it counts, you know, like somehow you wake up and you're like, I still have a career. Everything's still, you know, like these songs are getting written. And so I think that's my offering to people. Like you're going to constantly feel like you're not doing like certainly not 100%, but maybe like it maybe feels more like 60. Let's say 60% of what you thought you were going to do in a day, you do. And at first, as Jill says, like more like 35. You know, like if we're going with numbers, like, and then maybe, you know, if you kind of what I found. I mean, frankly, what I fundamentally found during this time, even though I'm always struggling with this as a patient, is that I have what I call a time disorder, you know, like eating disorders, you know, I had one of those, but the time disorder is like, if I get too obsessive about how I'm using my time, I freeze up. And then I really do find myself like 4 hours later going, what the hell did I just do with that time? And if really spending my time well is what I want, then obsessing about time is like the worst thing I can do. So trying to jump out of that vicious circle has been like my job for the last month. Like I really want to deal with this personal mental issue. And I've been working on it a while, but it's like this like tutorial time and sharing it with other people who are so freaked out that they haven't learned like 3 languages by now. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Welcome to my world. Like, yeah, you thought you were going to learn German. Yeah, no, you weren't, you know, like, okay, maybe, you know, like,
but maybe a word or two. And
yeah, maybe a word every day. And yeah, I was thinking of starting a guitar tutorial called Guitar Lessons from a Person Who's Not Really Good at Guitar. Probably really helpful to people. Like a person
lessons from a person who's not really good at guitar, who makes their living playing the guitar.
All the more incentive for them to like feel inspired. Like exactly like I'm not that good and I make a living at it. So like tricks on, you know, but
yeah, so exactly.
So they can
relate to that very much.
Like they can, so it's like like I know 4 chords. Okay, Dar Williams showed me like how she cheated this one chord to make it sound a little bit different, and that kind of gave it a different mood. That's all I learned today. Like I didn't learn a whole language. We just kind of took that next step from that person who's like not good at guitar. You know, there's a little bit like from her friend, you know. So
I love that series. I love that series. I think
next step lesson.
yeah.
It is. It's a good time.
Off
All
we
right.
go.
I mean, what else are we going to do?
Let's do
But
some,
you know what I think? I think most of all, we should take advantage of this time. I'm telling you what I'm re-enjoying more than anything in the whole world, jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
Me too.
Agreed.
Oh, whoa.
Yay!
wow.
Wow.
We
I had
have,
discovered last year. I'm a jigsaw head. We do wine and puzzle every week.
Yeah, we love puzzles too.
we have a 500 piecer on our dining room, taking over our dining room table right now.
Oh, Jill's got hers.
I sent. You know what? I have to tell you something. This I would recommend something. Painting puzzles by famous painters in history. It can be very interesting because you learn kind of about paint and gradations of. And I'm not a visual person, so my this is actually a photograph of one of these Scottish castles because all of us are into Outlander. But like I've got a Marc Chagall, I have the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And the Sistine Chapel ceiling, to do it, like if I ever go and see it, I'll feel this personal connection. Oh, and another one, Diego Rivera, his murals in Detroit.
Huh.
Really, it's the songwriting brain is the jigsaw puzzle brain. It's very similar. You know.
Are you homeschooling, Dar? Are you homeschooling the kids?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Here are the 2 really helpful questions. Are you writing a lot of songs? Are you homeschooling? Yeah. I was like, what is homeschooling? I pride myself on being like, I'm so grateful for them.
Yes.
Well, the fundraisers, I do everything because I'm such a grateful parent because they do what I can't do. I don't. So when they're like, so you're homeschooling? And finally my friend's like, yeah, I do 4 hours of homeschooling a day. I said, what do you do? Like, I use big words and I try to define them for my kids. I try to loop things in about history. I'm very kind to them about their accomplishments. And like, is there a program? Is there a, you know, and so luckily, my son was on his own track because he's 16 and he's got his own stuff to do. My daughter, I kind of hung out and hung back, and she's drawing and she's cooking and she's, and just spending a shit ton of time on TikTok. But, you know, it's like she's just carved out her own thing and doing a bunch of math homework. And so I thought, yeah, that's because I was the 3rd child for very overwhelmed parents. I mean, not the 17th child, but still. I just spent all this time. My biggest hobby when I was that age was like going out with a stick and like going in the swamp and like lifting up rocks with a stick. The end. It all turned out okay. So no, I'm not homeschooling. I'm home loving, and I'm talking with my kids, and I'm making, you know, when they interrupt things, I talk to them. Yeah. But how about you guys? I don't know. I don't homeschool.
Well, our kids are given a lot to do online. They've got these Chromebooks. Nini and I are our kids are in the same school district. Mm-hmm. So, and my kids, it's very, in 5th grade, and they both go about it really differently. Kate is super diligent and gets up every day and hits it hard. And it seems all the assignments are often due on Friday. So Thomas usually gets online sometime around Thursday afternoon.
Right.
Power through it. And I try to help them however I can, but I can't really, I'm trying, but not really. I've been doing things with them like, we have Masterclass on TV. We subscribe to the Masterclass, that online thing. And then there's another thing called the Great Classes that I sort of was like intrigued by. So I subscribe to that too. So we've been doing things just for fun, like watching, I'm not speaking Spanish, but Nini, but we have been watching these classes, these Spanish classes just for a hoot. And we've been doing like, Thomas and I have done some presidential ones. He likes, he's interested in numbers. So we've been watching COVID by the numbers, but it's like, I'm not teaching them. I'm just we're just
finding
another thing to like watch that happens to be educational. Like if I can trick them somehow. That's how.
Yeah. Tricking's good. I just look for tricks all the time. That's all.
I've been tricking them with like classes on TV.
Yeah. Got it.
So, should we do some parting thoughts?
Yeah. Cathy parted, actually.
Cathy actually is doing it for us.
Literally parted. You know, one thing I did want to say quickly, especially when we were talking about like our creative processes and how we're all managing through this, you know, all 6 of us, we all obviously are doing it similarly, differently. However, we're all feeling something. Somebody said to me that I saw online was something that, you know, what's happening right now to all of us is whether we're out there as nurses or doctors or not, this is a huge trauma, what's happening. Dar said it, you know, really well too. It's like, I go outside to go to the grocery store and I literally feel germs on my face. Like, we're all being extremely traumatized right now. The entire world is. Like, it's not like just a few people or something's happened, you know, somewhere, or it's not like a hurricane hits and it's like a really bad 24 hours. Like, this is an ongoing trauma. And when you are traumatized, oftentimes you respond, you know, one of 2 ways. One is super anxious, insomnia, worrying, like OCD worrying, or you sort of separate yourself from the trauma and shut down. And I definitely fall into that category. The more like I shut down to trauma, and something that we've all learned throughout our lives. You know, at some point you've gone through a trauma, and that's how you respond to trauma. Your brain knows how to respond. And my brain is shut down. I can't find anything really.
We're going to learn, and that can be what happened to something about myself.
Right.
That can be your activity. I call it revelation of the day. Also, I call it my jolt of the day. So I have 2 ways of learning: the fun way and the icky way. But they're both, you know, thing of the day. And I had a traumatic shopping experience last Tuesday, and I was like, why can't I go sit in my room and write a song, you know, work on my song today? I had to learn about like how this town was responding to what was going, like I had a lot to learn from going outside and being amongst those people. That was what I did. I learned something that day, and that counts. You know, that's how we build our.
Okay.
Let's just shut up because you're